Hey guys, welcome back to Self-Help. Today we're going to be talking about radical acceptance. Radical! Radical acceptance, radical, is pretty cool because once we've identified an emotion and we've observed it, what really helps then is to accept that it's there. What it comes down to is you can choose to stay miserable, or you can choose to accept your emotions, and then take the necessary steps to improve your situation and move on from it.
I'll be honest. I'm having a hard time.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm having a hard time trying to understand that the difference between, generally when I'm angry or if I'm sad, I know that I'm angry or sad. Mm-hmm. How is this any different?
Yeah. So
how is like accepting it, I guess I'll just accept it radically.
Radical.
But what's the difference?
It sounds like what you're saying is you're identifying or you're acknowledging that it's there, right?
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm upset.
Okay. So the acceptance comes in when you aren't trying to fight the fact that it's there, or you're not trying to push it away or avoid it. You accept that that's the reality. You're talking about the identification process, which is great. Now that you know that it's there, acceptance is the willingness to encounter the emotion and then to take the necessary steps to move on from it.
Here's my thought process. This is like, what I was saying is, I'm tied to train tracks. This sounds very helpless. I'm tied to train tracks, and the train's coming my way, and somebody's like, oh, you need to acknowledge that the train's coming here. And I'm like, yeah, I know that there's a train coming here. But you're saying, no, radical acceptance is like, you stand up, you look at that train, and you take it head on. I don't want it to be like, people like, oh yeah, I should go take the train head on. That's not what I mean.
So does it have to be a train?
I'm trying to think of something else that might be more
You can't.
Stop.
You can't.
Well, that's what you're saying. It's if you're saying, you know what, you just have to accept that it's coming, and you just accept your fate.
So
I got to think of a different analogy that doesn't have to do with something that can kill me, though.
Here's the thing. Your analogy is fine. You accept that the train is coming, so you're going to get off the tracks.
Okay. I was thinking like, I got to like just run right back at it, like.
What's important to understand is that there's always a way off the tracks. Sometimes it's time, which train's coming, it doesn't seem like there is, but there's always a way off the tracks.
So you've piqued my interest. How do I get off the tracks?
Radical acceptance. And let me tell you why. The truth of it is that problems actually can't be solved until they're radically accepted. Radical. Think about that for a minute.
Say it again.
Problems can't actually be solved until they're radically accepted. Think about you solve a lot of problems in your line of work.
Mm-hmm. True.
If you approached a problem like in this fantasy world of it not actually being there, not being to the extent or the severity that it is, not accepting the reality of it, are you going to be able to solve that problem very effectively?
No. In, say, business or at work or something for you, right? If something needs changing, sometimes just people talk very abstract about how we need to grow or we need to address communication issues.
Cut costs.
We got to cut costs. And my job was always to say to that person, okay, how are we going to do that? Let's look at specifics. But specifics can be uncomfortable. And I imagine that's the same with individuals. The specifics of how to radically accept this is probably uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so much easier to avoid or to kind of live in this fantasy land that doesn't actually have to acknowledge to the full extent what is happening in reality.
Okay.
And so that's why when there's this radical acceptance, you're able to pull yourself out and actually put yourself into what is reality. And then once you're there, it's so much easier to address the problem head on. What it looks like is it's just 100% acceptance of what is happening in reality. And the reason it's radical is because you're not leaving anything out. You're putting everything you can into understanding and accepting what it is in reality that is going on or what you are experiencing. It's important here to talk about some of the misconceptions people have about acceptance. And that is, some people assume that it means that they have to like what is going on or approve of it. That's not the case at all. You do not have to like what is going on or what you're feeling or even approve of it in order for you to accept it. It just means that you're willing to engage in whatever it is that's going on and you're not avoiding it or trying to actively change it.
So going back to the work analogy, sometimes I'm put on a team at work with somebody that I don't like.
Okay.
I can either deal with the fact that the work still needs to get done, or I can go home every day and complain to my wife about, oh, I can't get anything done because I have to deal with Garrett. Or I could just say, yeah, well, Garrett sucks, but I'm on the project with Garrett, so we're going to do the best we can. Sorry to any Garretts out there.
Sorry, Garrett. I like the idea of not just acceptance, but radical acceptance, because it really doesn't leave room for you to forget anything or leave anything out or just try to tweak things just the slightest bit to make them a little more comfortable or digestible. It's seeing it for what it is, whatever the event is or whatever you're feeling, and that's what opens the door to being able to problem solve and to regulate these emotions. So it really kind of goes into a sequence. Like, you identify or you recognize what it is you're feeling, you have radical acceptance of it, and then you're able to employ whatever strategies are helpful to you, which we're going to talk about in future episodes, to then regulate them. Or, going back to what we said before, turning down that volume dial or using the shrink ray to shrink that emotion down. That is kind of the flow of emotion regulation.
Okay.
Be sure to watch the next videos. They're going to dive deep into what then you can actually do and specific actions to take. Because we've already talked about identification, we talked about acceptance. Now we're going to talk about the actions you can take. See you then.